Unfortunately, still the very worst evolution in the game, we have the Evolved Goblin Drill, coming in at number 33. I think the Evo Drill is just so bad right now because basically anything that counters normal drill is going to counter the Evo Drill just the same, like Goblin Gang, Guards, Valkyrie, anything like that, and you pretty much never even have to commit almost any extra elixir to stop it. Next up is the Evolved Electro Dragon, which might surprise some people because if you're a Lava Hound player or a Golem player, it might be the most broken evolution in the game for you to have to go up against, but for the most part, people don't really use super heavy decks that much compared to before. It feels more like a cycle meta, and even if you do have beatdown, all you have to do is have a lightning in your deck, and it's very easy to just play around it if you're smart and don't spam all your stuff into one lane. At number 31 is the Evolved Wizard. I feel like the Evolved Wizard and the Evolved Electro Dragon kind of have the same fate to where they both have to be really, really broken in order to be any good in the meta, since you have to play a terrible card in order to use them, because the E-Drag itself is terrible, the Wizard itself is also terrible, so the evolution has to be crazy broken for it to be any good. And the Evo Wizard is decent, but it's just not really worth playing a card like Wizard in order to get it, but in certain decks it can work, so it's not terrible. On the dot at number 30 are the Evolved Skeletons. I think they're just completely trash, guys. Like, everyone is going to have a small spell for them. If they're smart at all, they're always going to keep that small spell when you have Evo Skellies in cycle, and they basically only get value, I feel like, against Barbarian barrel decks, because then you just go for them lower than the Bar Barrel simply can't reach them, but pretty much they will always just die like normal skeletons, or they'll just get spelled down. At number 29 are going to be the Evolved Barbarians. I feel like they're not that bad right now, because they just make your barbs a lot more threatening. They start attacking quicker, and they're just able to provide a lot more of an offensive threat, I feel like. You know, they have the extra HP and stuff too to survive a fireball. So they're really not that bad, but barbs are just kind of outshined right now, and the Barbarian evolution is also kind of outshined by certain things that we'll get to here pretty soon. Next up, guys, is the Evolved Pekka, which has risen a few spots since the last tier list I made. I feel like it's not super bad right now because it does have some pretty decent support cards these days. Like, the Evo itself, you know, it actually got a buff too, to where it gets a little bit more healing from killing certain big units and stuff like that. But yeah, the support is pretty good for it right now. Evo Battle Ram is really good, Ghost is really good, Bandit is really good, Golden Knight is really good, so Pekka's actually not in too bad of a place right now. You can definitely play the Pekka evolution. Surprisingly, all the way at number 27 is the Evolved Lumberjack. Now, I feel like it's not that bad of an evolution, but the thing is, guys, it's hard to play that many Lumberjacks throughout a game, so you really don't get to it very often, and a lot of the time it can get good value, but also a lot of the time it can simply just be countered by like 1 Elixir Skeletons or an Ice Spirit, anything like that, so I don't think it's really worth it to play the Evolved Lumberjack right now, and I can't even think of a single deck that uses it in this meta. Like, there used to be some giant decks that played it, but after the Lumberjack's nerf to the evolution, I just have stopped seeing it at all. Next up, we have the Fat Goblin Giant at number 26. I think the Evolved Goblin Giant is not that bad. Like, it does spawn goblins a little bit slower than it used to, but if you pair that with like a Rage or something, it can still get those goblins down pretty quickly. It's not the best meta ever for the Evolved Goblin Giant, because a lot of the time people defend with stuff like Golden Knights, so in order to take out those extra goblins, all they have to do is press that 1 Elixir ability, but it could definitely get value when your opponent is low Elixir or just in a bad cycle. The number 25 spot is going to go to Evolved Musketeer. It honestly feels kind of weird ranking the Evo Musketeer so low because I feel like it is a really solid evolution. It's really fun to play and it gets a lot of value sometimes, but I guess it's a little bit of a difficult one to actually get to because you have to cycle 2 whole Musketeers before you get to it, and it just really good in certain matchups, but in other matchups it gets no value, and it's kind of hard to fit in that many decks because not a lot of decks need a card like the Evo Musketeer, except stuff like Balloon. Man, oh man, how the mighty have fallen. We have the Evolved Bomber up next. It's honestly not a bad evolution, guys, but it just doesn't really stand out too much either because the issue with it is that it can actually be worse sometimes by giving your opponent a free King Tower activation if they're smart and go for a unit kind of in front of their King Tower. So it can be bad sometimes in that aspect, and it feels hard to get a crazy amount of damage with it ever since they made it so you can only bounce on the tower 1 time with the Evo Bomber. So it works in certain decks, but oftentimes there are better options out there. We have the Evolved Mortar taking spot number 23. I think Evo Mortar is a pretty strong evolution. I mean, if people play really smart against it, they can often distract it and then get some unit on the mortar to kill it, but it just shoots so quickly and it can be so threatening just getting a single shot on the tower. The Goblin will just always get that 2 stabs on the tower if it connects and they don't respond to it. So it's a very deadly evolution, really good for overwhelming, and I feel like it synergizes super well with most of the mortar bait decks just by forcing out spells on those goblins that the mortar summons. At number 22, we have the Evolved Firecracker. The Evolved Firecracker is pretty much the same thing like a normal Firecracker, except it's a little bit easier to get chip damage with because it has kind of a little bit more of a range thanks to the evolution, but that's really all it does, is that it gives it a little bit of extra projectile damage range, you could say. And it's a bit easier to get tower chip with it. But yeah, that's really all it does. It's a little bit better on defense too sometimes, but not really much though. Apparently it does have some sort of slow on the particles, but I hardly even notice it myself. And it doesn't really fit in any deck except of Hog Earthquake right now. Guys, after the Evolved Hunter nerf, we have it all the way at spot number 21. I think it's still a really good evolution in Royal Giant decks, and I think it's maybe a little bit unhealthy for the game how it is, just like permanently stopping a card. I feel like the cards that get in the net should still be able to attack or something like that, but just not move. Maybe it could be a little bit higher than I'm ranking it, but it's just not really a versatile evolution, and it can take a while to get to it, so I think this is fair. On the dot at number 20 is the Evolved Battle Ram, which is a really interesting evolution, guys, because sometimes if your cycle is bad and you have to play a certain card into it, like a Swarm card, it can just get like completely knocked back or just insta-killed by the Evo Battle Ram damage. And also, guys, it can be so incredibly broken behind like a big Pekka or something if you don't have a good reset to it. But almost every deck does have some sort of reset. But in specific matchups, it just can be so incredibly deadly. Just because of the fact that it doesn't die unless it actually dies. Whereas normal Battle Ram can just like pop if it connects to something. So I think it's a pretty strong evolution. It is a little bit hit or miss though. That's why I'm not going to put it any higher on this list. I was kind of a hater before, guys, but the Evo Dark Goblin has a very big jump here on this list compared to my last one. I put it very low last time, but today we have it at number 19. And the reason why it's so much better now is that it's just a perfect fit for this really strong Boss Bandit, Suspicious Bush, Wallbreaker spam deck. It just can allow you to overcommit so much on offense, so then you just play it on defense to completely destroy something like an entire Golem or an entire Lava Hound, and that lingering poison can get so much value too to destroy entire pushes. So I think it's actually in a pretty strong spot right now. The Evolved Tesla is going to be at number 18. I think there's still better building evolutions than the Evo Tesla, but it's not bad though. It's really nice in certain matchups, like against Mortar Bait, for example. It's really good to kill stuff like bats. It pairs really well with stuff like Xbow as well, just to take out any swarms they might try to play into it, and it's a pretty easy evolution to play. So I think it's pretty solid right now for a lot of Cycle decks to use. The Evolved Zap is going to take our number 17 place. I feel like the Evolved Zap is a pretty versatile evolution, and it's really good for example, stopping stuff like graveyards, or you can use it to stun Inferno Towers for longer, or Inferno Dragons for longer. And it's also really nice just to be able to fully kill stuff like Minion Hordes. I think it's a very good evolution. Sometimes in certain matchups it can also just completely be a deal breaker. Like, if you're playing Lava Hound against a Hog Earthquake deck with Tesla Firecracker, it can be so hard to break through. But that one time, when you get to the Evolved Zap and you can use that to kill the Firecracker, that can be a complete game changer. At number 16, we have the Evolved Goblin Cage. I don't think I could really put it much higher, even though I kind of want to. The reason why I'm not going to put it higher, guys, is because even though it's really good, there's just not a crazy amount of heavy single unit cards being played in this meta. So it makes it a little bit less destructive compared to if it was a heavy beatdown meta with like Golem everywhere, Pekka everywhere, and stuff like that. But it's still very good. It's just that a lot of the time, instead of playing Cage, you'd rather just have a Goblin Hut, because Cage is really good with the evolution, kind of just mediocre without it, but the Cage is always really strong. I mean, the Hut is always really strong compared to the Cage. At number 15, we have one of the most underrated evolutions in Clash Royale right now, the Evolved Royal Giant. I always see people constantly trash-talking it, constantly saying, man, what does it even do compared to a normal RG? Well, it does a lot, guys. Just the fact that it can knock back and deal damage is so good, because so often people play stuff like Goblins onto an RG, Guards, Skeletons, and the evolution just completely kills those things. And also if they play a Knight onto your RG or a Valkyrie, anything like that, it will just constantly knock it back, disrupting their attack, and it makes this so deadly sometimes, to the point where RG players will often just go for a really aggressive RG first play, knowing that it won't do anything, simply to get to that evolution to make a huge push with that their opponent just can't deal with. At the number 14 spot, guys, we have the Evolved Mega Knight. I think it's actually really strong, but Mega Knight itself is just not the best right now. The thing is, with the Evolved Mega Knight, can get really good offensive value, but the smarter the player gets, I feel like the less and less value you end up getting with it, because smarter players know how to get multiple distractions down so that Evo Mega Knight pushback is not as damaging. And also, one issue with the Evo Mega Knight, guys, is that when it's facing something like an evolved witch, it can actually knock the witch back constantly, and then it just basically allows the witch to permanently keep on healing itself and just makes the Evo Witch never die. So it has some bad interactions in this meta. That's why I'm not going to put it any higher than what it is. We have the Evolved Royal Recruits at number 13. I think the Evo Recruits are really strong. I mean, the normal Recruits would probably completely suck in this meta, but just because of the evolution, they're actually pretty decent. The evolution just makes the Recruits charge so quickly. You get to them really easily, really often throughout a game. And it makes it a lot harder for ranged units to deal with them, and it also makes it so your opponent has to respond to them much quicker because of how quickly they are able to charge across the map and everything like that. So I think Recruits are a little bit of an unhealthy evolution, man. I don't like the evolution concept of these things. I think that maybe they should think about giving it a rework. Maybe toning down the speed just a little bit, or toning down the charge time just a little bit, and buffing something else about them. At number 12 is the Evolved Knight. There's nothing super special about it, guys. It's kind of just an average evolution that can fit in a lot of decks, but it is still ranked quite high because I feel like you can just fit it in so many different things, and you know you're going to get value out of it in most matchups. Like, it's just going to have some sort of way to get value in pretty much any matchup, just to tank for things or tank the Princess Tower for your huge push. Whereas certain other evolutions, like, for example, Evolved Inferno Dragon, you can just E-Wiz onto, and it doesn't get any more value than a normal Inferno Dragon does. We have the Evolved Executioner coming in at number 11. To be honest, if the Evo Executioner wasn't good, maybe that would give the Evo Wizard a bit more time to shine in the meta. But yeah, the Evo Executioner is so good, guys. Just the fact that it has so much damage, and also the pushback, makes it so you don't even need to run Tornado with the Executioner anymore in order to have good success with it. I think that it's really, really broken in certain matchups. Like, for example, it can even fully counter a Hog Rider all by itself with the help of a Princess Tower, and you take 0 damage from it. So I think it's pretty strong. Executioner itself is not the best, though, so that's probably the only reason why you don't see it absolutely everywhere right now. It may be a little bit early to say, guys, but I think the Evolved Inferno Dragon is a top 10 evolution in the game right now. It's pretty easy to fit it in quite a few decks like Lava Hound, E-Giant decks, certain other beatdown decks as well, even some cycle decks with like Balloon and stuff like that. And it's the type of card that if your opponent doesn't have a reset to it, they just cannot deal with it. And stuff like Snowball can normally reset Inferno Dragon, but it doesn't reset the Evo Inferno Dragon, so it's really hard to get rid of it for a lot of cycle decks especially. If you face the wrong thing like an Electro Wizard, it doesn't get much value, but even then you're able to kind of protect it and get a lot of value. And it's a very punishing evolution too, to where if you make a single mistake, you just lose the entire game versus it. Now we have the Evolved Valkyrie, which I feel like is a very strong evolution. It's kind of like the Evolved Knight, except a little bit stronger, and it fits in a lot of decks too. It's able to just defend pretty much anything. Like, for example, when you have a Lava Hound deck with the Evo Valkyrie, you can pretty much just Lava Hound whenever you want. If you have the Evo Valken cycle, just knowing that whatever they throw at you, you're just going to yank back over and over and over again. It can defend a full Golem Night Witch push for 4 elixir, so that's really all I have to say about the Evo Valkyrie. It's good in beatdown decks, good in cycle, and it just pretty deadly on offense as well. You can play it behind a Lava Hound push just to pull in stuff like the Musketeers, the Archers, and things like that, and it can just be so devastating. Taking the number 8 spot, we have the Evolved Snowball, which has just been incredible recently. It's so darn good in this one Boss Bandit Ramrider Bridge spam deck just because it can defend so well, and it can also throw units backwards, which can then allow your spam units to get directly on your opponent's tower. Like if you have a Boss Bandit down and they play a Knight, you can just snowball it with the evolution to get that Boss Bandit right on the tower. And also it single-handedly made Goblin Drill a pretty decent win condition by giving you the opportunity to just chuck back Dark Princes that could normally never really be pulled away from your drill. As our top 7 evolution, guys, we have the Evolved Bats. I think they're so incredibly strong right now. I feel like one of the better cards against the Evolved Bats for a while was the Rage, but after the Rage got the damage nerf, you have to pretty much instantly react to the Evo Bats with it in order to actually kill them. So there's not a whole lot of good counters to them in the meta since there's like so much log and stuff. A lot of decks just don't have a good small spell to deal with them. And even if they do have a good small spell for them, you could still often bait it out with your Goblin Gang or something like that. And they just are a really devastating evolution to deal with if you play a card into them at the wrong time. At the number 6 spot, we have the Evolved Archers, which have just been making such a big comeback in Clash Royale recently. They're just so strong in Xbow decks. They completely carry Xbow. They're even good in like all these random different decks, like some random balloon decks, sometimes random graveyard decks. You don't always see them used a ton on ladder, I mean, sometimes you do, but also like in competitive play, you can really see the power of them, just being able to fit them in so many different decks, just as substitutes for other cards, in order to give you a better matchup against stuff like Graveyard. And yeah, just the damage they dish out is kind of crazy. They make stuff like Pumpo really strong too sometimes, and I think they are not really the healthiest because there's just no good counter to them, because you can just split them. So even if your opponent has arrows, it doesn't even matter. They just can't deal with this card. I think the evolved wall breakers are one of the best evolutions in the game right now. They're actually so broken defensively and offensively, guys. You can actually use them on defense to fully take out an entire Mother Witch or an entire Magic Archer. So they can really bail you out of bad situations. They can even kill a minion horde for you on defense. And on offense, they're just straight up impossible to stop if you do not have a building or like a Log Ice Spirit or Barbaro Ice Spirit. They're straight up impossible. For most decks in the game, or most beatdown decks in the game, they literally just cannot stop the Evo wall breakers and just have to take a connection. They're just so powerful. Despite the nerf that Evo Ice Spirit got, I still have it as the top 4 evolution in the game right now. I think it still does pretty much the same thing as before, because all they did was nerf the damage of it, but the damage was never really the issue for the Evo Ice Spirit. It's just the fact that it stuns up stuff for so long and it gives you a chance to get so much down on defense and allow your towers so much more time to take out everything. I think the Evo Ice Spirit might need a nerf to the amount of time that it stuns things for. Directly at number 3, we have the Evolved Goblin Barrel. I feel like people have gotten better at countering the Evo Barrel. They kind of recognize that they have to keep their cycle in a certain way in order to stop it, like keeping their E-Spirit for the Decoy Barrel, then Log for the other one. But it just always feels really awkward to defend because people will constantly force out your Log or your small spell on their, you know, Princess, Dark Goblin, stuff like that. Or maybe you have to cycle your E-Spirit for something random, and then sometimes you just can't stop that Evo Barrel no matter what you do. And if you're playing Cannoneer Tower, you might as well give up. The number 2 evolution in the game I'm going to say is the Evolved Witch. Now, the Evolved Witch is not used like crazy now. I feel like it's still used a lot, but it's not used as much as it was a month or so ago. However, I think it's still a really strong evolution. Just to make a card that's as bad as Witch be actually viable is kind of insane. So the evolution has to be pretty broken. The only thing about it, though, is that it does super well in certain scenarios, like if you're facing a poison deck. They just can't take it off the board since it literally gets healed up when they try to poison it. But if they have lightning or something, then they can deal with the Evo Witch just the same like a normal Witch. So it depends on the matchup, but sometimes it does get pretty insane value. And it pairs really well with stuff like Graveyard. Because if you Graveyard before the Evo Witch crosses the bridge, well, then the Evo Witch will just get constantly healed up by all the skeletons dying on the map. Guys, the number 1 evolution in the game right now is the Evolved Cannon. I saw on Royal API, the Evolved Cannon has the best stats out of any evolution. It's so good in almost any cycle deck, even after the nerf. It's just so easy to hit that barrage to kill Dark Goblins, kill Princesses, and Archers. There's not much more to say about it. It's pretty broken.